This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day. The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
You have to be strong in today's world. Keep your focus and what you believe in, how to achieve all your dreams. Keep moving forward.
The Hits Back with Nahaja Black is sponsored by Scotiabank, Bahara Retreat and Spa, and Central Bank.
It's the Hits Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hits Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hits Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hits Back with Nahaja Black.
Good afternoon, Bahamas, and welcome to the Hit Back. I'm your host, Nahaja Black. It's a beautiful Tuesday. Today was supposed to be the day, and I don't want to disappoint. I didn't mean to disappoint you all. Today was supposed to be the day when we play the interview with Dr. Shankara Chetty from South Africa. We pre-recorded it because of the time difference, and that was set for, so we did it on Saturday, and it will air tomorrow. Full show tomorrow. It will air in its entirety. And I just didn't want that to be overshadowed by some things that happened this weekend that I wanted to actually get a chance to talk about this weekend. Some things that have happened over the course of this weekend. Well, y'all allowed Columbus to get maimed. And my good friend, Clint Watson, found himself under fire as press secretary. We're waiting for him to log on so he can, join the show in a few minutes. Also, the issues surrounding COVID-19, it hasn't changed. It hasn't changed. We are still having our challenges. Hello to everybody who's online and who's watching online, to Vanessa, to Ava, to everyone who's listening in your cars. I'm excited. I can't wait for my good friend Clint to log on. I was just talking to him before the show, so trying to figure out why he ain't log on yet. This new job, the thing's a little slow for him. But we got a lot of stuff. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. And as I wait for Clint, let's talk about it. Let's talk a bit about what was shared or released. Okay, so after having time, and so I read the points. I read the points from the press statement. All right. And I forgot to mention some other things that's going on in the show today. I keep saying, don't put pressure on Clint. Clint is straight. Clint is good. Clint is man, y'all. Y'all don't sleep. Clint knew what he was getting into when he decided to accept this offer. So I don't have any issues with Clint. Someone says they're watching from West Palm Beach. Hello, Wyclef. Good to see you all. Also, with the maiming of Columbus, right, by the Archangel, with the maiming of Columbus on Saturday, we now have a whole debate on Columbus, again, the debate on statues, on monuments, the debate on all of these things of history. And I find that fascinating. Dr. Chris Curry and my good friend C.A. Nuri. C.A. is all against any sort of removal of statues. Chris Curry comes from the historic point of view on who was Columbus. Why should the statue stay or go from a historical perspective? So all of those things matter. And I'm looking forward to that discussion. But I want to hit on something first while I wait for Clint. I know we just spoke before, so he's probably having some technical difficulties. And when we go to break at the 4:20 mark, we'll get him on and get it sorted out. Something that's of note, right? Inagua and COVID-19. And hello to everyone who's tuning in. Clint Watson will be joining us. Dr. Chris Curry and C.A. Nuri in the second half of the show will also be joining us to talk about Columbus. Also, shout out to Solo for giving us a song right away. We digress. So here is, something that I think is very interesting, what is going on in Inagua. And it isn't interesting because it's a new story. It is new for Inagua. And what we know is that with COVID-19, all of the family islands across the archipelago, right, across all of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas is that at some point they get hit. At some point they get hit with COVID-19, right? Some point they are affected because we have refused, in essence, to get it under control, to figure it out, to do more. That's why I can't wait for the show, Dr. Shankara Chetty tomorrow. I mean, when I tell you this should change the way we talk about and deal with COVID-19, 7,000 cases now, no deaths, no hospitalizations, no need for oxygen. And guess what? And anyway, let me wait for tomorrow for that one, because I'll tell you now, it will change the way we allow anyone to talk to us about COVID-19. As if it's, listen, this thing was powerful. My husband was a non-believer. I was skeptical. I've asked a lot of other physicians to tune in to tell me their thoughts, because again, I'm not easily, I don't fall for things easily. I need to see them backed up. And when you see the work, that is going on with using his protocols in India, and you're asking, hey, how much of this has helped? He is now all over India, really teaching. He's in the Caribbean now, sharing his protocols. So all of this matters. So when we talk about the family islands like Inagua, I have this one challenge. This one challenge I have with the narrative of all of a sudden, right? All of a sudden, from our former prime minister. Now, he did have some point. He did have a point for this administration. You talked about free testing. Get on the free testing vibe, right? Like you spoke about it. That's what the Progressive Liberal Party pushed as a narrative, pushed as their campaign promise. Now the former prime minister, though, he got a lot to say. That is very disingenuous to me. And, to this robust opposition. Let Michael Pintard be opposition. Let him be opposition. The people of Inagua don't need politicking. We need solutions. Now, the worst part is, and shout out to Alicia, who's watching from Alberta, Canada, Calgary. Alicia, say hello to my best friend, Shana. She just moved to Alberta. We are planning on making a visit in December. So Alicia, just please tell my good friend hello for me if you ever see her. I don't think you could see her because she's in Edmonton, but we digress. All of this said and done, ladies and gentlemen, we're playing politics with COVID again. Playing politics with COVID. Vaccinations are up, great. And that's a whole other story for another day. Vaccinations are up, fantastic. But we still got folks dying. You say, okay, well, Nahaja, the people who are dying are those who are not vaccinated. Got it. Okay. Totally got you on that. Feel you on that. We're not seeing people. So it's a treatment. So the vaccine isn't really a vaccine. It's a therapeutic. It's a treatment, right? It's a treatment. It's a treatment that shouldn't be mandated, but it's definitely a treatment. Because it ain't doing the vaccine stuff that vaccines do, right? Which is stop you from getting it, stop you from giving it to someone else. But it is a treatment. And I think that if you need this treatment, and as someone who's vaccinated, I didn't die. Yeah, I ain't dead. I'm a walking miracle. Look at God. I got both shots, and I got them for me. I didn't get them for my mommy because I realized I could still get it and give it to my mom. But I got it for me. So apparently, what I was thinking before, it ain't working out. But we digress again. It is imperative that we start talking about COVID pre-treatment. The things that are going on in Inagua are the things that is just, what is sad about the family island is Long Island before the election was going through its own wave. Long Island before the election was going through its own wave. Have we resolved Long Island's wave? Have we resolved, all of the other waves that we've had? Have we really resolved these issues? I don't want us to play politics with COVID-19. I don't want us to start talking about, it's your pandemic or it's the other guy's pandemic. We're not there anymore. We have to mature, right? We have to mature. And so this is something that I think is very, very important, vitally important, that we get on the same page with the technique, the way forward. And I will tell you on now, the way forward is not what we've been doing based on what other physicians have been doing across the world and getting 100% stellar results. 100% lives are not being lost. Y'all ain't ready for tomorrow's show. I tell you now, because I wasn't ready. And this is where it's not time to play politics. It's now time to put all hands on deck. Let's figure out what's going on. Let's resolve. Let's save lives without getting into politics. Let's be open-minded to how do we deal with this and not be stuck on one thing that still has people across the world still getting COVID-19 that most of us will be fine from, but we don't know who will not be fine from it. And that's where the challenge comes in. We don't know who gets COVID-19 and then we'll take a turn for the worst. So it isn't just people with comorbidities. My mother had hypertension. She's fine, right? So we have to now start asking deeper questions. Someone said the new talk is that COVID is or will be an endemic, right? That's the new talk. Singapore is working with this endemic idea, but they're getting, they're going through their process of they're now getting COVID again. And the narrative is, but the vaccine saved us. But is it really a vaccine if you can still get it? That's not a vaccine. And that's, listen, don't argue with me. Y'all know it's true. So I'm not arguing if it's a vaccine or not. It's a therapeutic. I am totally there for it. I think it can, but I believe it save lives. I really do believe it does save lives. So it's something that is an option that can save your life. Now, Dr. Shetty says, okay, well, no, let me not even preempt that. But I think that we need to stop doing politics with COVID-19. People are really dying, y'all. Over 600 deaths. A country 400,000, 600 deaths. And we need to now be straightforward and we need to continue to educate. We need to continue to safeguard. But at some point, like the Minister of Health said today, we're going to be in the state of emergency protocols. We're going to be ending that. But if we're going to be ending it, and I see my press secretary just is showing up. If we're going to be ending this state of emergency, then what's the plan after that? How are we going to be treating COVID-19 in hospital? How will we be treating COVID-19 before you get to the hospital? Jay, I took the AstraZeneca vaccine, and I'll tell you all now, the first shot, I was so sure first shot was terrible. That first shot was terrible. Someone says, Melbourne says, if it's a therapeutic, why aren't other therapeutics allowed? Question of the day, right? But my first shot with AZ was rough, y'all, was rough. I mean, I was doing the show with massive migraines. I mean, like the chills. The second shot, thank you, God. Thank you. Someone says, really now, we should stop playing politics with COVID. But I was never playing politics with COVID. We always were saying you should stop playing politics with COVID. People playing politics with COVID. But real lives were dying. People were really dying. I'm not going to argue. So, we'll be back. So listen, we will be back. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Clint Watson, the press secretary, the new press secretary for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Let's see what he has to say. He's under fire, y'all. He's under fire. Shots fired. Let's see what he will say about these press guidelines, about how it has been received by his colleagues in media, how he has been received as the new press secretary, and what do we have, what can we expect going forward? And I also want to throw some questions to him with regards to Managua. What are we doing on the ground there? Are we, what is the Minister of Health's plan with regard to getting that under control? We need some questions, some answers for that as well. We will be back right after this. You're listening to The Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio, 96.9 FM.
Beulah, gal, can you believe this? We are now the patrol queens of the neighborhood.
We now large and in charge. So we need to check out what's going on in everybody's yard. What about that gun that we know that Junior and his homeboys just ran out? Can we report that too?
Of course we can.
But we could be in deep trouble if they find out.
We need to report what we see, Beulah. When you call Crime Stoppers, they just answer your call in Miami.
So then we can report everything? Guns, where they hiding the drugs, who shoot who part of which gang, or who disturbing the peace with the loud music and the motorcycles.
Then our neighborhood will be the best in the Bahamas, and everybody gonna want to come live here. And then our house price will go up, gal.
So what we waiting on? What's the number?
If you see something, say something. Let us all pitch in and stop the crime before it's your time. Call 328-8477 from Nassau or 242-300-8477 from the Family Islands. Or text us through the Crack Crime Bahamas app. Stop the crime before it's your time.
Attention all students in grade 4 through 12. You think you know about money? Well, the Central Bank of the Bahamas is giving you a chance to prove it and win cash in the 2021 Get Money Smart Bahamas Video Essay Competition. Can you tell us why you think the Bahamian economy is an ideal model for digital financial services? If you can, just produce a short video submission before October 22nd and show us you are money smart. Cash prizes will be given in various age categories, but you must get your parents' permission to enter. For more information, visit www.getmoneysmartbahamas.com or see our post on social media.
Baja sugar, sugar, let's get sugary. Softer, smoother, and amazing skin. Oh, Baja sugar, sugar, we're the sugar ladies. Giving you skin soft as a baby's. Goodbye hair, we'll take good care of you.
Come visit us at Bahar Retreat Spa on East Bay Street. Contact us at 323-6711 or visit us online at www.baharetreat.com.
It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the
And
Hit
we're
Back.
back. I must apologize. I was called out for saying secretary. And it's so right. That's my Bahamianese secretary. I'm sorry. But that's the tree. You got to put the tree there. It's like welcome. No, but you're right. Totally in error. I apologize. Press secretary, the one and only Clint Watson joining us. Clint, thumbs up when you're ready. You ready? Good.
I'm ready.
How you doing, buddy? Welcome to the show.
It's good to see you. I'm doing well.
This is
It's
the other
Tuesday.
side now.
It's
This
Tuesday.
is this
yeah.
is the other side. I've always been a guest on yours. Now you're a guest on my show.
Yeah. Yeah.
Different.
It's exciting.
Yeah. Well, first of all, congratulations on the move.
Thank you.
You are now, and this is the first time I'm actually seeing you since the move. This is literally the first time.
Actually,
Yeah.
true it is. Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's
Clint
exciting.
Watson-
It's different, but it's exciting.
Well, no, it's definitely different and exciting. You're sure it's not dull. It's not been dull for you. Well, Clint,
No.
I know you're a busy man, and I want to ask a few questions right off the bat. The first thing, of course, is this recent. The firestorm from the new press guidelines, when we spoke, you said they weren't official guidelines, so the unofficial press guidelines. Tell me the backstory on this, because it
Sure.
took off and you've been all over the news. If your media colleagues have really called out the guidelines presented. So give us the backstory.
Yeah. And I think it's important to put it in context as well. I think that first of all, to say the overwhelming majority of the media have supported this. The noise have been from a few who have been loud, but loud doesn't necessarily mean majority. And that's what's happened in this case. The majority of the media throughout the Bahamas have stood and supported the new opportunities, I call them, for the media to engage government officials. It's been a small few. And if you look at the trend, a select few who have opposed and have voiced objections. But the good thing about it is it's not been with merit, because a lot of what they are opposing is exactly what we are assuring does not happen. Let me give you the context behind it. Many people who would have seen me in another place before this job would have heard my outcry that we do not have access to the government officials like we should. We did not have access to the prime minister. We did not have access to cabinet ministers to respond and to address issues in a timely manner. Well, when this job came up and I took the job, that was on the premise that I took this job, that I would be able to ensure that the media in this country did not have to go through what we went through. And so as you can see, my first task at hand has been to address the needs and concerns of the media. These new guidelines are designed to give greater access to the media and to ensure that media houses throughout this country, including the Family Islands, have access the same way that the major media houses in the capital do to the same government officials. Their message, although maybe on a smaller level and platform, is just as important as the big dogs in Nassau. All of our islands deserve to have a connection to government. And what we are doing is ensuring that everyone has that connection. So, having said that, we came up with guidelines and opportunities that we can provide for more people to access media in this country. What have we done? The guidelines that you saw were a template that we took to news directors last week in a Zoom call to tell them what it was we wanted to do, what road we were heading on, get their suggestions, get their feedback, and talk to them about it. Now, here's what ended up happening. We did that. We got widespread buy-in from the news directors we spoke to. And for largely, they said, listen, we like it. Can we tweak this? Can we add this? And so forth. And we said, yes. We will go back and take those suggestions under consideration and formulate it so that we can come back and formalize it. Somehow, certain individuals who were not a part of the meeting got a hold of the document without having any understanding or context to the meeting, just saw it and said, oh, this is ridiculous, this is crazy, and placed it in public domain for other people to see it. Unfortunate, but that's what happened. So the entire context of it was taken out of consideration, and people just went based on a perception that was put out there that they're trying to restrict the media and not understand or read the document and see that we are providing in the document new opportunities for media to engage with government officials. For example, many people are accustomed to seeing on Tuesday reporters camp out in front of cabinet trying to get an interview. Well, I've been a part of that for how many years I've been in media. I figured it's time we put that to an end. I believe media ought to be treated in a dignified fashion, and we ought to respect them. And I also believe that cabinet ministers who are going to be questioned on serious issues should not have to do so on the sidewalk of Bay Street with tourists walking up and down. It's just not the right place. So we decided to provide a forum and an outlet on Tuesday mornings that cabinet members can address the media in a controlled environment, in a press briefing, and we will also be able to address for the first time some of the agenda items on cabinet and give that to the media in a formal press briefing. So what we are organizing is on Tuesday mornings before cabinet, an official cabinet briefing that reporters can come in, set up, sit down, relax, and the ministers will come to them to take their questions, to address their concerns and their issues. That's the first thing. The second opportunity we are providing for the media is what we now call the Office of the Prime Minister briefing, which will take place on Monday or Wednesdays, where they can come to a press briefing room that we have here at the Office of the Prime Minister, similar to what they have in the White House, and they can question government officials, question myself, on anything related to government. That's an opportunity that they've not had recently. We're bringing that so they can have that. We're also ensuring that media throughout the Bahamas, not just in New Providence, also have access to government, also have access to interviews. And so we're now including our media houses in the Family Islands who before may have been overlooked or ignored. Many times we saw them at the health presses that were held prior to this. We're now including them in all of our press conferences so that they too can feel a part. We're also allowing them to be able to have contact with government, that if they have questions need for the newspapers on the islands or the radio stations or whatever media houses they have, they can get answers. And that's why we said, contact the press secretary's office. If you need to reach a minister, if you need to book an appointment with the prime minister as far as interviews, I'm the person you book it through.
But you're not the only person that we book it through.
That's correct. It by no means means that only me can set those up. We have told media houses you are free to still contact cabinet ministers if you can reach them. But if you have a challenge, or if you don't want to go to the hassle of reaching them, please reach out to me and we'll make it our job to get them for you. Many reporters have been doing it. Today, we dealt with about 4 or 5 reporters trying to reach cabinet ministers who called me, said, this is what I need an answer to. We were able to reach the cabinet minister in cabinet, get the answer back to them. They have their story today. So it's been working.
And I may ask you this, Clint, how does that work now? Because I can tell you the informal way that we would normally do it, you would send the minister, if you have their number now. So and that's why I don't mind this process for those who don't have the numbers for the ministers. Whereas some of us, we've now gotten the numbers, we can access them directly. That's easy for me. It's for someone who's been in it for a while. but for others, they might not have that access. But let me ask you this. You're not stopping that process outside of it. Because you
No.
have
No, we're not stopping it. We're saying these are avenues that we're going to provide for the media. You now have access to this. We've told news directors, reporters feel good continuing to doing what they do, they can do that. We are here to assist. These are rules to supplement. Now, we've put some things in place that we want people to follow by. For example, the Covet protocols. If you're interviewing the prime minister out at an event, if you are talking to him, we said boom stands are important because we want to keep social distance in place for reporters and for our national leaders. So we've asked them to have boom stands. We've asked them to address our national leaders, professionally. We've asked them to dress professionally. All right. So that at the end of the day, the image of the media is important to us. And also, I believe it's important to how we treat our leaders. And it's important to make sure that we have level playing fields with all of those things. So I think people may have gotten carried away with the guidelines thing. We've said that this is what we're doing.
But these guidelines, Clint, are very hard and fast, right? So what you're saying now is that it isn't as hard and fast as what these guidelines project. And this is what you're saying is that what has been leaked to the media was just for consultation with media houses.
It was consultation. Now, granted, a lot of what you see there remains because people like the fact that it doesn't take away their access. It gives additional access. If you look and see what's happening with media guidelines world over, ours are not as stringent as many other countries. A matter of fact, you will find that in countries all over, it's very stringent, absolutely stringent. We're not doing that because we understand our society, we understand our culture, and so we're trying to ensure that we don't lose that. But at the end of the day, we are putting in place what we believe works for both sides. The important thing is the Davis administration has said they want to engage the media more. So we're trying to find avenues that we can give you the more, but do it in an orderly fashion.
What do you say? One of the questions, and what has been the pushback of it, and across, from veteran journalists, Clint, you've gotten it from Wendell Jones, from my colleagues here, from other media agencies, where they're saying that what you're doing, though you're saying you're giving more, they feel as if you are restricting access. Why?
Okay.
What do you say to them when they say, okay, listen, you're restricting this access?
I'm glad you asked, because a person who see it as restrictions don't have the understanding of what it's designed to do. They weren't on the call. Those persons you just called were not in the Zoom meeting. So what they would have gotten was secondhand information that carried a different message. You talked about Mr. Jones. He and I had a great talk on Saturday. So much so that he was like, oh, I got a couple of things I think you should add to that. Understanding was the key there. He understood after explaining to him. He said, okay, I understand where you're going at. I'm glad that you're saying that there is some tweaking that's happening to it. Fine. Here are some of the issues people had, right, that they expressed. Legitimate issues, that is, because there's a lot of people who are saying no to it, but are yet to say what their issue is. They have not said it. But those who legitimately said their concerns, one of the concerns was this. Okay, you said that they're allowing 2 persons only to be accredited for these special press briefings. Challenge is we want to be able to determine who covers our press briefings, not you saying only 2 people can cover it at all times. And what if we have other people who want to be able to cover it? So we've heard that, and we said, listen, it's up to you. You're your newsroom. You know who can cover. You determine who cover. We will give you the accreditation passes. You determine who you give them to every time when you send somebody to cover it. That'll be on you. So that was one thing that we were able to solve, which was a simple solution. You determine who you're going to send to cover the briefings. Fine, not a problem. Another concern was, will we be able to still reach out to people if we want to contact them, or do we always have to come through you? No, you don't. You can still reach out to people as normal as you would. If you need our assistance, we're here to provide it. That provided clarity. Those are the main issues
But what about the dress code?
That we were able to address.
What about this dress code now? Because sports reporters tend to wear a different type of clothing, right?
I'm glad you raised
on
that.
the beat.
I'm glad you raised that. And that's why it says on it, unless otherwise instructed, right? It says dress code, business attire, that's all right. So we've changed it to appropriate attire, right? Because at the end of the day, like you said, you're some sports people. Now, if it says unless otherwise, I think what was there before, you have it in front of you?
I'll open it.
It says business attire unless otherwise specified or something of the sort.
Dress
Obviously, if you're
code
a
should be
sports
business
event,
attire. Yeah,
right.
business attire unless otherwise specified.
Right. So if you had a sports event, do you expect to be in business attire? Everybody around you probably is dressed in sports. That is absolutely different. And again, we've even further tweaked that to say appropriate attire, meaning what's appropriate to where you're at. And that's what it's all about. And that's simply a code that everybody gets when they go to any event. It tells you a dress code. And so what we're saying to our colleagues is when you go to these events, be appropriate so that there's no issue with why are you here, who are you, what is it all about. If you're at a formal event, you don't come with shorts and want to try and get an interview.
What do you say to your colleagues? Clint Watson joining us, press secretary for the Commonwealth, of course. What do you say to your colleagues, though? Because of Clint, I'm not a journalist, so I don't know about standing out on Tuesday waiting for cabinet to come out. I'm not familiar with this process. Where certain areas where there are changes, it's fine with me as a talk show host, but not as a reporter, right? So when I listen to my colleagues, some of the frustrations that they have is that there isn't anywhere in the world where governments dictate how the press interacts with them.
That's not true. Everywhere in the world, governments dictate how they interact with their national leaders. Everywhere. And anyone that tells you otherwise is mistaken. As a journalist, I have traveled far and wide. And everywhere we've gone outside of this country, there are guidelines and rules that are fastened when it comes to the press. You don't just walk up to a national leader and say, "Can I interview you?" It does not happen. I've been to countries and conferences. It happens nowhere in the world. Nowhere in the world. Absolutely nowhere. You just can walk up to any government leader and say, "Oh, I want to get an interview." It happens nowhere in Nahaja. A matter of fact, you don't get in most of those places unless you are what? Accredited. You don't just walk up and say, "I'm a journalist, I want to interview the prime minister." You have to have accreditation that you would have had to submit, that would have to been approved, and they give you an accreditation badge. None of my colleagues, absolutely none of them, can honestly say anywhere in the world, you can just walk up without any appointment, walk up without any accreditation, and just interview a cabinet minister or a prime minister or a president. It happens nowhere. But what we are doing is simply not as stringent as that. We're not telling you can. We're just telling you we're going to provide a forum for you to do it rather than on the streets. We're going to provide a press briefing room for you to come to rather than not being able to have access. It is absolutely providing opportunities, not taking away anything, but providing additional opportunities for the media. And I bear in mind to say again, there are numerous houses in this country of media. We have gotten widespread support for this. Widespread. For the exception of one particular house, which has decided for whatever reason to blatantly say they're not supporting it. Every other media house has supported the movement towards this kind of organization. And further, it strengthens the press in the country. It doesn't water it down. It doesn't restrict them. It gives them greater access. If you look at what we are proposing to do now, this was never done by any other administration. There was a great attempt to do it by the past administration, and they were not able to carry it out fully. We now have the opportunity to implement this to give greater access. If anybody knows Mr. Davis from being in opposition, he held press conferences monthly. He entertained the media in questions and answers. He has said he wants to continue doing the same kind of engagement, and this is why we are putting this in place first, to be able to provide the forum for more engagement of the media, not just from certain media houses, but the entire press corps in this country. I keep stressing that because too often we forget about the media houses on the islands and we don't answer their questions. We don't provide them with an avenue to central government to get information on what's happening on their islands. We are doing this so that they have a direct line and a direct access to us to get the information they need for their communities that they service.
Now, yeah, someone says, okay, what about the declaration of Chapultepec? I think I'm pronouncing that right, where it says media access should not depend on the whims of those in authority. And you're saying what to that? And we signed
I'm glad
on
you
to
asked, because it's not depending on us. We are providing forums for the forums in the media. We're not hampering their access. The same way, I'll say this again so people understand. Whatever media houses did before to get cabinet ministers, they can continue that. What we are putting in place is added opportunities that we will set up as an administration that they can have these interactions with cabinet ministers. This is in addition, not in place of. The only thing in place of is instead of being on cabinet's doorsteps, we're providing a forum for you to meet those ministers and to talk to them. But it does not stop you from calling a minister and getting an interview and setting it up. That's very important for us to stress again. This is not taking away access. It is giving additional access. Persons in the media can continue to meet and book ministers as they do now. However, we found that people call me all the time, say, Clint, are you able to get so-and-so? Can you be able to arrange something for me? We've been able to do that. They like the fact that they don't have to go through the hassle of doing that. Somebody in someone's office will do it for them. And that's what we are doing. We're providing greater access for more people to have the information. We are not taking away anything that they enjoy now. I'll say it again. We are not taking away any privilege that they enjoy in getting in touch with cabinet ministers or in talking with them at events. What we have said is, if you call us and say, I want to talk to a minister who's going to be at this event, and you tell us what it's about, I can call that minister and tell that minister they want to engage you on this, so the minister don't have the answer on the spur of the moment. They can get the answer on the way to that event to properly give you a better story. Haphazard answers don't work in the media, but a lot of times we get that from leaders because they're not prepared for a question. And when they're not prepared for a question, they can't give you a well-rounded answer. But if they know the question is coming, they can get the information, give you a better answer, and in turn give you a better story. Again, all of this is if you choose to use the service. If you prefer not to use our service, you can go ask the minister and get whatever answer the minister gives you then. It does not take away, it supplements.
Well, no, I think it's straightforward now, and I think that's what it was important. At first, it did seem a bit, matter of fact, right? Some of these things taken at face value was very concerning.
Well, it would if you got a document in its draft stage and only had pointers and not a finalized document. That's not more palatable, and that's the challenge when people puts things out into media, into the public domain, and they do it with an agenda and a message with it. People begin to see it from that angle rather than picking it up at face value and saying, I believe this is a good step towards what we need to do to formalize certain industries in our country. I've been in the media for more than 20 years, Nahaja. I believe it's time for our industry to be taken more serious, and I believe it's time for our industry to have more respect. But that only comes with greater accountability, and it comes with structure. And we don't have enough structure in place with media that I believe we ought to have because we're a main industry in this country, I believe. And so I believe it's time for us to be able to do that so that our people can benefit and young journalists are coming up, can see the structure, understand how the structure works, and begin to plow into that structure and build our industry rather than it continuing to deteriorate.
Let me ask you something. Clint Watson joining us, Press Secretary for the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Something here, interviewing protocols, Clint. And one of the things inside the press group was the question of smaller news entities, right? In particular, the digital side. And, they tend to use just their device to get information. And they don't necessarily have boom mics. You're saying that if they have access, if they find another way to have access to the prime minister, apart from this off the cuff, because you said all off the cuff and face-to-face interviews with the prime minister that are permitted at an event, must be shot with boom stands.
I'm glad you raised that point.
Right. So what happens to those? Because they're smaller. They don't have the sort of resources other entities do.
We got that from them. We've seen them. I was surprised. We've seen them use boom stands for their phones when they're recording the prime minister. Remember now, in the heart of the COVID environment last year, when this COVID-19 was still unknown and people weren't sure, a lot of media houses who had to do their work used those to protect their reporters because they still had to do their job. And so we saw media houses come out with these boom stands that they could fit your phone on, they could fit your recorder on. So they have them. We've seen them use them. And that's why we felt it was important for them to continue along this line, because they have them. This is not requiring anybody to do anything they didn't have before. We've seen them use them. And we believe it's a good idea to keep it in play. It protects all and sundry. If you remember last under the previous administration, a press corps had to go into quarantine because when they interviewed a minister, he later turned up positive, I think, either the following day. And so everyone who interviewed him that day at cabinet had to go in quarantine. Well, the boom stands came out in goodly number after that because people recognized, maybe we are too close. And so it provided some good distance. And so we believe that it's a matter of safety for both the journalists and for the person being interviewed that they use boom stands, because otherwise, in order to pick up your audio, you're going to have to be right in the person's face. And that's just a risk I don't think people should be wanting to take just for an interview.
Cabinet briefings will take place on cabinet days, Tuesdays, right? What is
Correct.
The normal process right now? What's the process that happens right now?
Right now, the process is reporters go outside of cabinet and wait for ministers to arrive, and then they beckon to them and ask them, can you stop if they want to interview them on something? Can you stop and talk to us a second? The minister may stop or may say, I can't stop. If they stop, they interview them, they go in. That's been the process for years. Now, it was a bit more controlled when cabinet was in the Churchill building, because you had a little more space that was away from everybody else. So you didn't have the distraction of people walking in the background, and you could kind of control it, even that wasn't the ideal. Now the cabinet is relocated temporarily. There is no space. It's where cabinet is held now is very small. It's only a narrow pathway that leads to an elevator that takes you up to cabinet floor. So right now, reporters have to wait on the sidewalk on downtown next to Scotiabank, that area right there, for a cabinet minister. It only obstructs the sidewalk, but it also is not the best backdrop to interview a national leader on any number of issues that are important. But tourists walking up and down, back and forth, it's not the best. It's also not safe. It's a national security risk. You're in the open on a sidewalk downtown. It's not the best place to be conducting interviews. So to avoid all of those, to give into consideration all of that, we decided the best thing to do was to provide a venue that reporters can still get their interviews, still get their stories, but it's something that's a little more comfortable for them and the minister. And so because there's no room at cabinet, we are proposing a location that's right in the area that we will announce shortly, that they'll be able to go and sit down and wait, and ministers who they want to speak to, be able to come there. They've asked their questions, do their interviews, ministers leave and go to cabinet, and they're able to comfortably sit and set up their tools rather than having to be outside on the sidewalk.
Will they be able to access all cabinet ministers on Tuesday?
That's the whole idea. This is going to require support on both sides, ministers as well as journalist sides, and so we're gonna be talking to our ministers about this once this is finalized to get their support on it, and we will implement it. If ministers don't want to buy into it, then reporters will obviously resort to what they've been doing now. The whole idea is we want to make this work because it's better. It's an upgrade to what you've been doing. But we will not do it at the risk of reporters not being able to get their stories. We won't risk that.
So then, okay. So that was another concern for folks.
Yeah. No, this only works with the support from all sides. It's a partnership. And we would not allow something like this to happen if they don't get their stories. We will ensure that they get their stories and they have access to the ministers. And if we see that that's not working, then we won't continue with it. We will allow reporters to resort back to what has worked in the past for them. This is a partnership, and it's designed for everyone to benefit. And if people are on both sides are not benefiting, it's not obviously a good tool that works.
Mm-hmm. Clint Watson, press secretary, joining us on the show. Before I let you go, Clint, and one of those things, of course, that there's criticism since you've taken the job as press secretary, persons calling into consideration or into consideration what your allegiance, right? Are you still the Clint Watson from beyond the headlines who fights for the Bahamian people? Is there concern that, and they're looking at this and saying, oh, this is the restriction of the press, and that Mr. Davis, Prime Minister Davis, will be seen worse than the former administration because of these adjustments. Now, mind you, after we had this discussion, I walked away. I said, okay, this isn't nowhere near as bad as I thought. It's nowhere near as bad as I thought. But again, I'm not a journalist, right? I am not one.
You are. You're doing the job. You're doing a job. You're doing the job, and a very good job at it. You're doing the job of journalist. It does affect you. It affects other people in your craft. And having seen this and heard this, do you see this as a restriction?
Not for me. I don't see it as restricted for me, especially knowing that everything is the same.
Right. So what I want you to help me, Nahaja, do is don't call it restrictions. Because now that you see different, say different. The problem we always find ourselves in this country is even when we're given knowledge and understanding of something, we still refer to it as the first thing. And the first thing is not correct. It's not restrictive. It's providing additional opportunities. But if people continue to call it restrictions when they know it's not restrictions, then they create a narrative that simply doesn't exist. And that is the Davis administration is trying to stop the press. It is not doing that. Since I've been in this office, every public event that he has shown up to, the press has asked to engage him, and he has agreed. Every single time. Now, will that continue to happen? Perhaps not. There's some times when he's unable to engage the press at every single event. For example, if he had an event today, unless it's absolutely necessary, why would you want to engage the Prime Minister today if he just engaged you yesterday? Sometimes we just use things that are easier for us rather than doing the investigation. Do you need the Prime Minister to speak on every issue? No. Sometimes it means looking for other people, other technocrats who can assist in things and stop just using as a cop-out the minister or the Prime Minister. We get too used to having politicians explain on everything. When you do need them, should they be available? I certainly agree so. And that's our job, to make them available on the matters that you need them for. But it shouldn't just be a cop-out, I need a story, let me just get a minister on it. No, it should be, when do you actually need them? Because, let's face it, we're in this, I've been to CARICOM over repeatedly. I've covered, countless events in Caribbean nations. They do not have access to their prime ministers the way we do here, right? Now, you asked a very important question. You said to me, is it the same Clint? Well, it is. He's in a different role, but he's in this role for a reason. And the reason is a lot of the things as a journalist he saw that should not happen, he now has the opportunity to ensure it doesn't happen and to fix it. And that's exactly why I started with this. Greater access to the media, because we struggled in the past with access to the Prime Minister and certain cabinet ministers. That is the first thing I took on. That is the Clint Watson that people know. Someone who said it should not happen. It should not be this difficult. And now the first thing he does when he's in the position that he can make change is change the access and ensure there's greater access. But find it ironic that those who may have their own agendas try to spin the message and say, oh, the Davis administration is trying to make it difficult for reporters. That's nonsense. It is absolutely not true. We have provided greater opportunities, not less.
Last question. Ask him, can you ask Clint to clarify how they expect reporters to submit questions in advance when most reporters formulate questions based on answers given?
Good question, Thea Nixon. Good question. You're still able to ask questions off the cuff. We're saying that if you have a question that you want to send to us that you know in advance, that you want to get information on, tell us so we can make sure that we get the best answer for you. They're still, now listen, once you've gotten your answer, we've also said to them, you can ask any question off the cuff. You can ask follow-up questions off the cuff. But this is just a reporter tool. Remember, I was a news director. I was also a reporter. And I want the best answers so I can have a great story. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the best answers don't come from off-the-cuff answers. It comes from the person being able to go and check with their subject matter, being able to check with their technocrats and get the right answer, so they come with a comprehensive answer. So we've advised reporters, if you tell me in advance, I can ensure that the minister is armed with what they need to answer that question. But by all means, you can ask any follow-up questions. You can ask any questions off the cuff. That does not change. We are just telling you, if you come to us in advance, we'll get that for you so that you can have a full answer. It's an addition, not taking the place of.
Clint Watson, Press Secretary with the Commonwealth, with the Office of the Prime Minister, joining us on the show. Clint, thank you so much, my friend. I appreciate the time.
My pleasure.
I think you brought a lot of clarity to it as well for folks who were interested. There are some folks still calling it what they feel is restrictive. I don't see it that way anymore. Considering what is important to me is that I continue to have my access. But what I will say, Clint, is this. I know that I don't go on the beat. I don't do the groundwork. I don't go to the press conferences. Our reporters go to the press conference. So I am following, honestly, what the reporters are saying. And if they feel as if this may be a challenge, I think, of course, you, as a former news director, you're listening, and we await the final.
And I'll say this one last comment, Nahaja. The best judge of whether this is truth and it works will be the journalists. And I always ask people, ask reporters, are you now having greater access or more restriction? Let them be the ask any of the reporters for the past 2 weeks on assignments with any of our leaders if they've been restricted or they've had greater access, and let that answer tell you. If reporters have been restricted for the past 2 weeks, straight up to yesterday when the Prime Minister spoke to the National Heroes Day honors, if any reporter had restrictions, don't you think you would have heard them on Facebook by now? Don't you think they would have been doing stories and talking about, oh my God, this is unbelievable, the restrictions are unnecessary? You don't hear it, do you? You don't hear reporters saying, I've experienced restriction. You don't hear it, do you? So that tells you what? It's perhaps working. And that's all I say. The proof will be pudding.
Clint, thank you so much, my friend. And of course, watch your phone now, because I got a whole list of persons I need access to. So I look
You got it, girl. You got it. You got it.
And folks saying that you're missed on the show, but Shanique doing.
I got a surprise for them this week, though. So just keep watching the show. I got a surprise for y'all this week.
Thank you so much, buddy. I appreciate the time.
Take care. All right.
Clint Watson, Press Secretary for the Office of the Prime Minister. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. I want your thoughts. I've got text messages. I want all of these things. We got special guests joining us as well, Chris Curry, C.A. Nuri. I want to get your thoughts. We'll be back right after this.
This is Guardian Radio, 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
Gal, can you believe this? We are now the patrol queens of the neighborhood.
We now large and in charge. So we need to check out what's going on in everybody's yard. What about that gun that we know that Junior and his homeboys just ran out? Can we report that too?
Of course we can.
But we could be in deep trouble if they find out.
We need to report what we see, Beulah. When you call Crime Stoppers, they just answer your call in Miami.
So then we can report everything? Guns, where they hiding the drugs, who shoot who part of which gang, or who disturbing the peace with the loud music and the motorcycles.
Then our neighborhood will be the best in the Bahamas, and everybody gonna want to come live here. And then our house price will go up, gal.
So what we waiting on? What's the number?
If you see something, say something. Let us all pitch in and stop the crime before it's your time. Call 328-8477 from Nassau or 242-300-8477 from the Family Islands. Or text us through the Crack Crime Bahamas app. Stop the crime before it's your time.
Sugar, sugar, let's get sugary. Softer, smoother, and amazing skin. Oh, sugar, sugar, we're the sugar ladies. Giving you skin soft as a baby's. Goodbye hair, we'll take good care of you.
Come visit us at Bahar Treat Spa on East Bay Street. Contact us at 323-6711 or visit us online at www.baharretreat.com.
Tired of banks forcing you to use technology to bank the way they want you to? Your convenience is important. So no matter what your banking needs, Commonwealth Bank's friendly staff are always available in branch for that personal one-on-one service. But when you choose technology, our online and mobile banking app offers you state-of-the-art functionality. The choice is yours. Commonwealth Bank. Bank the way you want.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black.
And we're back. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. All right, everybody, I hope you're doing well, taking care of yourself, having a good day, that you're taking care of yourself. You know, with all that's going on, this story with the press was very important for us to have. And I'm happy that Clint was able to join me on the show to really give me his feedback on it, his thoughts on it, what is going on, what is the position here. You know, again, I look at it, and for me, my first instinct was that this is, I don't like how it's sounding. It does sound restrictive. He explained that it was a draft. Remember, I came on the show and said, well, boy, this better be a draft, because if this ain't a draft, we have some problems here. And so he said it's a draft, that it was released early. What was explained here, I could understand the order being presented. I have no problem with the level of order that's being brought up, especially if everything that the media was able to do before, they continue to do. So what Mr. Watson has said, I got to say Mr. Watson now, because he got a real job over there at the OPM. So what Clint has said is that, listen, we are able to do everything. Now there's an accreditation form. You got to fill out an accreditation form, and you have to be accredited press, right? So that means that you got to go through your form, you got to get vetted, and this is to have press briefings that are supposedly supposed to look like the White House press briefings, from what I got. But there are a lot of, journalists, and in particular, I know some really senior ones who have issues with this. And, I wait for them to really, I'm in the middle here. I'm in the middle here. Most of what I've seen and read, I'm fine with. I'm in the middle. So I don't have a problem. And I wonder if it's just me, not me being a talk show host, that I don't have a problem. But I realize, though, that some folks have a problem with me. What a time. What a time. I realize now that, if I remember correctly, and I can't wait to bring on my friends, my co-host, C.A. Nuri, Professor Chris Curry. I realize now is, 4.5, 5 years, I think CA will remind me. Boy, CA will remember this. I mean, I was called all kinds of names. I mean, I remember, CA, if you remember, there was when we were at Guardian Radio, not Guardian Radio, sorry, at ZSR, Sports Radio, when I first started talking politics, I remember there's one fellow in the PLP was also had a radio show on the station. Man, and he went on a tirade. Oh, the only thing he didn't call me was, no, you wouldn't. He definitely wouldn't call me a child of God. The only thing he didn't call me was, was some sort of scum beneath this. It was bad, right? Now they want to shake your hand because hand go. This is, it's so sad, right? In politics, in this country, as small as it is, there are some groups who just cannot handle the truth. I tell you, the truth is the former administration was terrible. The truth is that I'm not going to apologize for it. Just as the Christie administration was terrible, it is what it is. Stop crying. Stop crying. Man and woman up. Your 5 years of feast and famine has happened. It's over. The majority of Bahamian people have suffered. We've continued to suffer. It will not change until we start to mature. So I'm not going to apologize. Now, the conversation of the press secretary, That is vitally important. And I'm happy that we had that to elaborate on this conversation. Because guess what? If there is any restriction of my ability to access folk, any restriction to talk to ministers, to talk to people, that will be an issue. Any issue where we cannot talk to, our reporters can't access and get information, that will be an issue. So stop whining, stop crying. The things that we should be crying for are the 600 plus people who've passed away, right? Even with this whole thing with Columbus, I think it's going to be an interesting discussion of where we are as a society, like where we are, what we're trying to do, why it is so important, or why it has become an important topic of conversation. I think all of that is a part of our psyche, right? All of that is a part of our psyche. All of this is a part of the Bahamian conversation. But the one thing that doesn't change, and I said this the other day, I said this when this administration won. They won Thursday, and the next day would be Friday. That's the only thing that's different. But for some people, things have changed, just like it did with the other guys. I don't win. We don't win until policies are enacted, period, bar none. Now, as the seasons goes and the tide changes, people get nervous. And parties tend to get really nervous. You get nervous because you're in your feelings. Get out of your feelings, man. Get out of your feelings. Graduate. Graduate from being a sycophant. Graduate from being in the bosom of parties and colors. Graduate to being a Bahamian where you could stand on the outside of your party affiliation and realize that people are suffering. At some point, we got to grow up. Grow up. You know, I don't understand. Children still barely in school. Grow up. This administration has no freebies, no passes. They got to do the job. They got to get the job done. What is the job? Curb, deal with COVID-19. Deal with the economy. You promised VAT relief? Well, then get on it. You promise these things? Promises, man, listen, I always said a promise is a comfort to a fool. I'm not moved by promises, you know. When you deliver, fine. Everybody oversells. The speech from the throne was filled with overselling. I can do this, I can do that. Fine, I don't care. Let's see what you get done. I could care less about who's in and who's out. I could care less. Because I tell you now, when the mortgage is signed, when the deals are done, my husband and mine, our name's on it. Y'all don't pay me. Y'all don't rock me to sleep. When BPL comes, we got to pay that bill. I don't know y'all. You know, politician ever sign me no check. Scatter eyes. When they say, wheel selector and come again. It is a new day. And you know what that new day is? I ain't never been scared. That's the new day. The new day is, what day is this, Cecil? What day is it, CA? What day is it? What day? You just as bad as me. Unmute your mic, man. Where they find you? There you go.
I think you purposely is to turn off my mic so I can look foolish on your show. But that's okay, I know. I don't take it personal. I'm beyond such. I keep at a certain level. No, I'm demure.
Yeah. Someone says, you know, free testing, increased testing too. I think let's get it. Let's get to it. I agree. Let's get to it. I think it's a lot of, how many more weeks they got, Cecil? How many more weeks? Do they have any more weeks?
I mean, for the PLB?
Yeah.
Mind you, the 2 weeks are gone, but I still maintain the first 100 days. It's the first 100 days, so I don't expect much. I'm wondering how we're going to do this free testing, where the money and that budget is going to come from. I'm seeing that people are calling for it, but they're not asking the correct questions on where and how we're going to finance it, how it's going to orchestrate if there's going to be a mass influx of people demanding free testing. Is it going to be done at the public clinics? Is it going to be done at the private clinics? Will Doctors Hospital continue to lead the charge? How are we going to supplement Doctors Hospital fee? It's right now it's the average of a $35 fee for
we need to cut that out.
COVID test. Can we afford $35 times 100,000 people? Right?
But no. Don't forget now, $35 is the retail rate. You got a wholesale rate, so it should be cheaper. The wholesale rate should be cheaper.
But we know from the past that Doctors Hospital is the one who imported the wholesale. That's how they got it down to $35. So remember, they were the importers of this rapid antigen test some years ago, and that they were responsible with their partners to bring it in. So $35 is a good price. That's a good price.
That ain't no good price. But my thing is, after you do the testing, right? After you do the testing, then what? See, testing is one thing, but then what? And that's one thing there. The testing, then what? What is the then what? What happens after you get tested? That hasn't been answered.
And that's a question for the Minister of Health. And when you see him, when he's on your show, you ask, what is the plan? What is this plan?
Mm-hmm. No, but we got to get the what, because I mean, all of this talk about testing. The Prime Minister said something interesting. The Prime Minister said, we're going to live up to our mandate, right? Someone says wholesale is like $4. I wonder what's the quantity for wholesale to be $4. That's going to be interesting to me. But
and you know, Nahaja, and sorry for interrupting you. I see the price $4, but no place in the Bahamas you can go and get a rapid test for $4.
No, but the government would have to purchase it on its own through the Ministry of Health.
Separate from these private companies.
Yeah. No. You can't do testing and be buying whole retail locally. You can't do that. You buy it wholesale and you get it from abroad. You're the government. Why would you buy locally? I mean, unless they planning on,
Well, we know that no one buys it locally. They buy it from wherever they buy it and import it here. The idea is, let's say if it's $4, how is it that the price is all the way up to $35?
Mm-hmm. No, but what you mean? What was the visa? The travel visa was 80 at one point, and it went down to 10. I mean, that's profit margins.
It tells a tale about our government, and if it is that cheap, and it could have been a better price, and that these people are making a profit off a pandemic, where people are dying, where they know they need testing, and they choose to make a profit instead of help the nation. That's an indictment on them. And again, that conversation needs to be held.
Yeah, no, we need to get that conversation there too. I think at this point, Inagua, I think the former Prime Minister has a great point. Dr. Minister has a great point. He called them out. He said, listen, y'all need to test. You promised testing. You promised testing, so you need to test. I thought that was the best point he's made since he's been on the sideline. Mind you, he shouldn't be talking much, but at least that was a good point. That was a good point. He called him out. I can't fault him on that one. I thought that was a good point.
So you give me a date, Nahaja. What time should we start testing? Like what month? Do you think before Christmas?
Look here. I can't even. When they could get the money for it, I don't know how to. Listen, I still waiting. I put in my request for the Minister of Economic Affairs, for the Minister of Investment. I put all kind of requests in. Minister of Health. Y'all don't think I put my request in a long time. I still waiting on the First Minister, but we digress.
Did you ask Clint?
That's the whole. Who you think I put the request in with? I'm waiting. You see, I got and listen. The ministers told me, right? No one. You remember? I have to reach out to see if Miss Glover changed the number, because you remember she said she wasn't gonna change the number. I got to reach out to Miss Glover now. But we digress. All right. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, let's talk about Columbus. Let's talk about the statue. What does it mean? What does it mean that Columbus was vandalized? Does it mean anything, right? Does it mean anything to us? For many, or others think that it is what it is. It should be done away with. The argument of the history of Columbus, there's no argument. Columbus was not a good guy. He served at the pleasure of the Queen. So he was great for Queen Elizabeth, or whichever queen. That was, I figure it was not Queen Elizabeth. But for whichever queen, Chris is like, no, that's not the one. For whichever queen he served at the pleasure of, that was whom he did his bidding for. But he was not a great guy for all of us, the indigenous people. And then, of course, slavery and what is brought and what is meant for us. So I understand why there is no love lost, why folks would be angry. Queen Isabel of Spain. Thank you, Toby. Real historians. But, you know, I think, too, we have to realize here that there is a different generation. a different generation that is saying, you know what, these vestiges, we know the story. And there's no way they should be placed in places of honor. They should be removed. And I'm wondering then what? What is the next step? What is the next step when we talk about the removal of things? What are we putting in its stead? Because I asked, my husband said something very interesting. He said, you remove it, we put pindling there. And 100 years from now, will they remember the pindling that was for why he was placed there, or the pindling with the era or the controversy of drug running? What will be the issue then? And so then we have to ask, how do we respect or look at history? And where should history be placed? Should there be a space? See, so where all of history can be reviewed and extolled. And when we talk about heroes, what is the qualification, the requirements of heroes in Bahamian history, within the lore of history? So I think it's always, this is a very broad-reaching conversation that talks about, I think that hits on who we are as a people and what is the narrative that we want to carry forward. So let's have this discussion. Joining me after the break, Dr. Chris Curry will be joining me. You're listening to The Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM.
Softer, smoother, and amazing skin. Oh, Baja sugar, sugar, we're the sugar ladies, giving you skin soft as a baby's. Goodbye hair, we'll take good care of you.
Come visit us at Baja Retreat Spa on East Bay Street. Contact us at 323-6711 or visit us online at www.baharetreat.com.
Have you heard about the COVID vaccine raffle? If you are vaccinated against COVID-19, you can enter to win amazing prizes like food store gift certificates, hotel stays, beach excursions, and so much more. Even if you are previously vaccinated, you can still enter to win. The COVID vaccine is free, safe, and protects you from severe COVID-19 infections. Don't delay. Get vaccinated today and enter to win. Visit www.baxbahamas.com to register.
You have a new text message from Scotia.
Scotiabank is adding text messaging to its communication channels to keep customers updated in quicker and safer ways. As of November 4th, Scotiabank will be using text messaging to provide notifications on the minimum payment required for your credit card and due dates. Customers may continue to access their credit card statements on Scotia Online or through our mobile banking app. Learn more by contacting customer care-bahamas at scotiabank.com or call 356-1697.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black.
All right, and we're back. You're listening to The Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. I've got Professor Chris Curry joining me and my good friend C.A. Nuri. All right, guys, let's talk a bit about this Columbus statue thing. Okay, so everybody is familiar. Saturday, Michael the Archangel, who's not the Archangel, by the way. That was what he called himself. we saw the destruction of a what, almost 200-year-old statue, I think, Dr. Curry.
Yep.
That,
yeah, it's been there since 1832.
So wow, it was short, just a bit over, right? So let me ask you this, all of you, when you saw it, Chris, Dr. Curry, what were your thoughts on the vandalism of the statue? What were your thoughts?
First of all, I want to say that I do not endorse or support the destruction of any property, public, government, or private, or otherwise. So that was unfortunate. It wasn't an awful act. But at the same time, I think, in many ways, the act of a singular individual, whatever motivated him, it resonated with many Bahamians, many who thought for a while that statue should have been removed. I, for one, from last year, I went on record in June of 2020. I was part of that group that was petitioning for the removal of the statue, but I want to underscore, I wanted the statue removed and put in a museum where it could be properly curated by a Bahamian curator who would be able to explain the historical context of the statue. But I don't think it should have been in front of Government House. I think we should have removed it a while ago. And I think we should have done it through legislative means, which is what our group was trying to do, to get, at the time, the F&M government to pass legislation to remove it properly and put it in a place where the interpretation of the statue would be done by a curated museum employee and a curator.
Mm-hmm. CA, your thoughts? I know you had strong thoughts on that as well.
Definitely. One must say that the statue was not removed. The statue was vandalized and destroyed. It was memed. It was crucified. It was bashed. It was hacked. So we must use the right wording for what it was. What Dr. Curry is advocating did not happen. The Bahamian people who are supporting the gentleman does not care about what Dr. Curry wants. They do not want it inside a museum. They're not interested in having a museum. They want the statue destroyed. They want all vestiges of colonialism in the Bahamas to be destroyed. And in fact, if you listen to these people, Dr. Curry is in a minority, and they care not about having any curated information and historical facts and artifacts about the Bahamas at all. They care not about history. They care not about 200-year-old statues. They care not about the other statues in general. And that should be the only conversation we should be having, that this gentleman chose violence. He didn't. We have a mechanism that is in place where Dr. Curry has already started, where they're petitioning the government, and the government is now considering. We know there's a number of steps was going to be considered before the statue was going to be moved. And this gentleman said, "The hell with all of that. I'm going to go there, and to hell with the law, the hell with justice, the hell with systems. I'm going to mash it up." And in fact, he hint that he plans to mash up everyone, all of the other statues, and he will go to the next level and attack whatever else vestiges inside the country. And that is concerning. Those words that he says, and the people that who cheered him on, the people that who supports him, have the same mindset. They have the mindset of violence, and they are prepared to perpetrate that violence against the entire society. And this is the only conversation we need to be having. Are all of the artifacts, historical artifacts, in jeopardy? And I am petrified to know that in our limited society of artifacts, that there are people out there who will sneak in the dark at night when Dr. Chris Curry is sleeping or teaching class about history and the importance of where we're going, and will break it down. So Dr. Curry won't have any artifacts that will see it here. And that is concerning, and he needs to be alarmed.
Chris, your thoughts? Someone says, by the way, you're being an alarmist, Cecil. You're being an alarmist.
No.
Yeah, you're being a bit extra on the
we saw the video, and we saw that what Michael, the Archangel Michael, declared what he plans to do. And we saw what people, we have memes. It can't be alarmist when you have memes suggesting that Victoria is next. What the next German name? Woods Rogers is next.
Yeah.
Woods Rogers. You're going after Woody too, right?
We are concerned. We should be concerned. We should be concerned, especially with a seemingly unbalanced gentleman who no one wants to get punished, who will be out soon, and he says that he will do it again.
Listen, I think, see, someone says Cecil is always extra. I think, and with all of this that's said, right, that I agree with you. I agree that the destruction of property is not the way to go. But at the same, however, there is also something that you have to pay attention to, that there is this undergirding, this statement of, this is a note. I was watching it, right? And when, Michael was doing his thing, and he seemed coherent. He had his political message going on, right? And I thought to myself, boy, you sound like you voted for a particular group, but I digress. Anyways, it was, I do not think that this is the way, I know this is not the way we go about it, but I understand that there is that thing, something under that underbelly of sentiment, that this statue or these remnants represent the vestiges of colonialism, that it represents the hardships or the economic hardships, the physical hardships of a people. And many younger people too believe that we can't be a new Bahamas if we are still paying homage to to these parts of history. I just want to say this though, all of that, we still have the Queen. So you can't, you knock down the statue, but we still have the Queen as our head in a way. So to me, that's a symbol. All of that was the one thing, but it doesn't change where we are. And so for me, it's a broader conversation on, that's that one thing. We have to nip it in the bud. You don't praise vandalism because it could be your business next. So you could have a whole march and then they burn down, your business. And then we say, okay, but it's for a cause. So I'm not one into anarchy. I believe in order. However, then there still is that conversation of where are we going as the Bahamas? Do we keep these relics and put them in context of history, teach it as history, and then add other things to history, right? To add our own history, the new Bahamas to the history books and put it on display for other people to see and be a part of? I think that's the way to go, that you add to your history with other monuments. Chris?
Yeah, I just wanted to say a couple of things. First of all, I think this definitely represents a groundswell of anti-colonialism that has percolated to the surface of popular discussions in our country for a while. I would say everyone understands now that Columbus represents the absolute worst of colonialism because he inaugurated, with his interactions with the Lucayans, enslavement, taking a number of them captive on board his ship, sailing to Hispaniola. When he returns after leaving some men behind because the Santa Maria was shipwrecked on December 25th, 1492, he returns, and instead of asking questions what happened to his men, he goes on a war campaign. Eventually that evolves into the encomienda system under Nicholas Ovando. So the record is there for Columbus and his evils, but what I want to argue is that it's really been since independence that we as a country have galvanized towards a view of Columbus that sees him as an absolute villain. And he's been vilified more recently by people like the National Heroes Day Committee, groups like headed by Sebastian Campbell and others. And it's important because here we are struggling in the mire of trying to figure out who we are since 1973. And yet we have these mnemonic reminders of colonialism everywhere we walk and drive. And we talk about Columbus in front of Government House. Government House itself is a symbol of colonialism. Everything on top of the hill was the people who ruled you. And everyone over the hill was the people that were ruled. And then you go on to Bay Street, where Parliament is, and you got to face this mammoth statue of Queen Victoria. And what's most disturbing about her is she's facing this miniature bust of a man who was surely not miniature in life. He was a big man. I'm talking about Sir Milo Butler. Yeah, we've reduced him to a little bust facing opposite this mammoth woman representing colonialism. So our spaces represent race and space. And how we look at spatial representations of power is really interesting in this country. And it begs the question, why don't we, almost 50 years independence, don't have a National Heroes Park, don't have monuments of our leaders in place is that you could really find them. I find it disturbing, CA, that you could barely find my Lyndon Pindling at the airport. The airport's named after him, and the statue is hidden in the bush. It's hidden in the bush by the airport. It's like, I know he was a shortish man, all right, but why don't you have him in a place of prominence by the airport? I literally think you have to go hunting for him to find him there. Why is it that we have Randall Fox, forgive me, but he's at the archive? A place of prominence for him needs to be found. Why isn't it we haven't developed a real National Heroes Park? Jamaica has a National Heroes Park. Most countries, the United States has countless monuments. They have Mount Rushmore, for goodness sake. What do we have? We have all these monuments, including the Queen, Woodes Rogers, Columbus, and then we have our own heroes, either hidden somewhere or tucked away where you can't find them, or not even discovered or developed or sculptured to the people who want them. So we're really lacking. We're lacking in a lot of areas.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you on that. And I think that that's what's so upsetting. Someone says, Dr. Curry, you were always my favorite professor. Loved your class. Because I think for me, that's the challenge, right? We and sorry, my internet's been freaking out a little bit today, but we don't see our modern day Bahamas, our history encapsulated. And even, I smile at the sports one down in at the Sports Center, right? The Walk of Fame, which is all billboards. Like, I know Walk of Fame, that's a hurricane, debris field. That's not a Walk of Fame. You can put some stars in the cement. You can do all kind of things. But we need to really consider how we tell history. And you wrote an interesting article, an interesting piece, or maybe you reshared it on your page, talking about how when there was the fire downtown and folks rushing into the Pompeii Museum to try and save artifacts, and you thought that was crazy at the time. We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want you to share that story, because I think we now have to, look, none of this matters, if society as a whole, to me, getting wealthy, economic change, all of the things that money could buy, if you don't know who you are, you're spending it for naught. And as a country, the social aspects of development are pivotal to even helping to understand the economic desires or trajectory of society. So if we as a people aren't really manifesting or understanding the power of our history, then how do we make sure that we don't repeat failed mistakes or past mistakes? And how do we ensure that we build on successes? So, I think that there's so much to be said. The reason why I wanted to do this discussion, I think it's bigger than Columbus. I think it's bigger than the statue itself. It is beyond the statue. It is a sentiment of, or a question of, who are we? Where are we going? And what should be the next step forward? So I want you guys to stay right there where you are. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. We'll be back right after this.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
You've been listening to Guardian Radio 96.9 FM.
It's time to celebrate the good in our people. They do their best just to help everybody. They show good character by their good deeds. Lend a helping hand to everyone in need.
Join us on October 20th as we celebrate Character Day. Visit characterdaybahamas.org for more information. Be the reason.
Be the reason now. Be the reason. Show your character.
Have you heard about the COVID vaccine raffle? If you are vaccinated against COVID-19, you can enter to win amazing prizes like food store gift certificates, hotel stays, beach excursions, and so much more. Even if you are previously vaccinated, you can still enter to win. The COVID vaccine is free, safe, and protects you from severe COVID-19 infections. Don't delay. Get vaccinated today and enter to win. Visit www.baxbahamas.com to register.
Sugar, sugar, let's get sugary. Softer, smoother, and amazing skin. Oh, my sugar, sugar, we're the sugar ladies. Giving you skin soft as a baby's. Goodbye, hair, we'll take good care of you.
Come visit us at Bahar Treat Spa on East Bay Street. Contact us at 323-6711 or visit us online at www.baharretreat.com.
It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. It's the Hit Back with Nahaja Black. With Nahaja Black.
And we're back. You're listening to the Hit Back with Nahaja Black, Guardian Radio. All of a sudden, I forgot my name. Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. C.A. Nuri, Dr. Chris Curry joining us on the show. Someone says Ms. Black Nuri is being dramatic. Firstly, his sentiment is wrong. The statue is inanimate, and so it was vandalism, not violence. Second, why would you suggest that a young man is unbalanced? I guess because he is not a conformed group psychology subservient sheep. I was a tongue twister coming to the end. I get what Sia is saying, but Bahamians are passive people and some are no longer standing for it. Pindling did the same, throwing the mace out. Okay. Someone says, when they remove the remainder of it, just don't put it back. Simple. If we are independent, then act like we are. Get rid of all the colonial stuff. We don't need to be reminded of the bad things that happened to us. Someone says, I agree with Dr. Curry. We cannot just erase history. I think we care in the house slaves like Nuri. I think that was a mistake, a typo. What about all the modern Columbuses who now live with subtlety among us today? Don't be distracted. I agree with Dr. Curry. Since we're moving things, we should move the name of Hawkins Hill. All right, what's that? What's that, Chris? What happened with Hawkins Hill?
I'm not sure the etymology behind Hawkins Hill, but I think, the bigger point, I think, is we really have an opportunity here to reassess in the entire and most systematic way possible, what it means to be Bahamian and what we want to represent us in our monuments and in our museums, right? It gives us great opportunity to have a healthy conversation about what should stay, what should go, and what needs to be created, right? And I think we should have some kind of a commission to determine this. And we should do it systematically. We shouldn't leave any stone unturned. Because yes, we should be questioning, of course, Queen Victoria in Parliamentary Square, but indeed we should also consider Woods Rogers. And I understand, of course, it is on private property, but a lot of people don't know the story about Woods Rogers. He was an enslaver. He brought German Palatines here to the Bahamas to establish plantations, and he encouraged them to bring in enslaved persons as well. So we often think of Woods Rogers as this heroic figure, when in reality there's a dark side to him as well. So I'm just saying that this moment, where this is the highlight, the spotlight is being shone on the desecration of a government piece of property and a monument, should be used as an opportunity for a national conversation about Bahamian identity, our understanding of history, and what it means for us as a nation moving forward.
Cecil, your thoughts?
And again, I still believe we're not talking the correct topic. We need to be talking about moving forward. What is it that where we see the Bahamas, and what do we want for the Bahamas, right? The narrative of the Bahamas. And we know that the Bahamas is a gateway to the New World. That narrative has yet to be told, how we are globally significant to the world. And when you think of there persons making money from Pirates of the Caribbean, that the Bahamas was the pirates' capital, that story has yet to be told, because few Bahamians know that, right? Few Bahamians know who Woods Rogers is. Few Bahamians know that we, the first encounter, put us inside a global history. No, everybody knows the narrative of Columbus. Columbus was a monster. We don't make excuses for him. I'm not sure of any of these Bahamians are familiar with the tours happening on Bay Street. That when the taxi driver passes Columbus in front of Government House, he points it out and said, that is a monster right there. That monster killed so many people. That is part of the narrative. And it became a symbolism of correcting that it doesn't happen, right? So that was the need for having the Statue of Columbus, to remind tourists that we acknowledge, and we are too a part of that global conversation where we know that Columbus did some atrocities, right? And I think that the purpose of that statue did that, right? I believe that we need to do a better job in explaining who we are as a people, and I don't believe that is happening. And I think that we are putting the cart before the horse. I like Dr. Curry said, we need to create spaces for monuments, right? And that we can have value in telling our story. And without these monuments, I don't believe that our story would be correctly told. I personally would have created a statue of Black Bear, right? Because he was the governor of the Bahamas at one particular time, right? That story needs to be told, that he was the first one to have equality in New Providence, right? Where every man had a vote, black and white, right? Before, while slavery was doing that, he freed all the slaves. But that story isn't being told at all. And I think that the Statue of Columbus itself has a narrative. Few people know who created it, why it was created, why it looks like a musketeer, why it looks like one of those sailors, right? Why it was erected in front of the Government House instead of House of Parliament. That story has value. And what value does a 200-year-old monument has, and have that by who created it? And I will dare to go as far as that particular statue may be worth millions of dollars. How can you desecrate something that costs millions of dollars? Why not save it and put value to it?
Chris?
Yeah, I wanted to say a couple of things, and this is getting a little philosophical, if you don't mind, but I always make a distinction between the past and history. And the past is what actually happened, and history is what is said to have happened. And it's important because one thing CA was saying that really resonated with me, we can't erase the past. The past is what actually happened. So 1492 happened, but how we interpret what happened, in other words, what is said to have happened, is really important, because history as a discipline and as a study, a field of study, is all about interpreting or making sense of the past. Remember, the past is what happened, and history is what is said to have happened. So we can't erase the past, but we can interpret it historically in a different way because of the time that we live in. And this ties into your conversation with your husband, Nahaja, because when you think about it, history is always changing. New interpretations, new methodologies, new findings change our interpretation and understanding of the past. Past never changes. It's a foreign land. We can't go back to it, but it's there. And so what's important for the historian to appreciate, understand, is contextualizing the past, interpreting the past. That's why it's so important for our students to be educated about the meaning of Columbus and the significance of Columbus, as well as people like Woodes Rogers and other persons. It's also equally important for our students to get a better grasp of the period of enslavement in the Bahamas and the more recent modern political history that made and shaped the current contemporary Bahamas that we live in. So there's a lot of work to be done. And this is a great opportunity to seize the moment and really challenge ourselves to dig deeper into our past so that we can make sense and make meaning of the past, even if we can't change what happened.
Yeah, and I love that, making sense of it, and because I think all of that is what has shaped us, what has made us the Bahamas, right? And so all of it is in its context. Again, though, I will say this. And I wish that there was some study where we can get some surveys. It's just a base survey and ask the question, do you agree with the tearing down, the maiming of the statue? Do you wish all of these statues be removed? And put with it age. Do some demographic studies on it. Put with it an age. Put with it, education. Put with it all of the demographics, just so we get an understanding of who wants it gone. And I think that helps us to understand that without any data, Chris and CA, I wonder if it is more so the millennial and under who are saying, hey, listen, man, these vestiges of colonialism, and you can even see it in the movement for our natural resources. It is a younger group that is tired of politics. You're tired of the status quo. They're more saying, listen, I am aware of who I am. I'm aware of my race. I'm somewhat aware of education, of our history, sufficiently enough to be angry. And angry because nothing has changed. So it's still those vestiges of colonialism where we still have this economic separation and inequality. So those things to me are signs of the same sort of economic and political systems that keep us divided. So perhaps you're seeing that as the rebellion against all of this history. All of this is what has held us down, and so we must remove it. It has no value. You can put it in a book. We just want to see it in our face. Write it down. We may not read the book, but none of this has any merit and places of prominence in society. They should. I had one suggestion where you take the statue and put it underwater. Put it underwater. Don't destroy it. Sink it. Right with the rest of the stuff over by What is it? Clifton Pier, where the rest of those statues are.
Yeah, you have the underwater sculpture garden. Yeah, that actually wouldn't be such a bad idea.
Yeah,
it's a kind of museum. It's an underwater museum.
And Nahaja, there are a grouping like Chris who supports that, but there's another grouping who would say that if you put it there, they will go and find it. And this is again the conversation. There's a grouping amongst us who has no value to the sculptures. If you put it in a museum, they will go and seek it out to destroy it. And we need to address those and arrest that issue, that there are people amongst us who, in their passion, have no value to any of the monuments. They don't want it inside the museum. They don't want it in the underground museum either. Their desire is to destroy it altogether. And I am concerned about that there are behemoths who will choose violence instead of making a place for that. And this is where I petition and I am raising my concern, that there are people out there, and I'm sure Chris can say that, yes, he see them also, and they spoke to him and say, no, Chris, you're wrong. They don't want to save it. This museum talk you're talking is no sense. And like I said, I want to highlight those people by saying that there are people out there who wish to destroy, not to departmentalize everything and put it in a section and tell our history. They want to erase that history from us altogether.
I want to say something real quick about this, and it's really important that you get this. Ruins aren't ruined. Just because they're old and just because they're lifeless, it doesn't mean that they're ruined. Ruins aren't ruined. What I mean by that is if you put that statue in a museum or you put it in an underwater sculpture garden, what have you done? You have created an asset to the orange economy. And it means then you could tap into a multi-billion-dollar industry that allows you to capitalize on Columbus. That is so ironic and paradoxical if you think about it. Columbus capitalized on Lucayans. He used them for slave labor, and he made lots of money for the Spanish Empire. We can now turn it around, the dead man and his sculpture, and we can make money off of him. But if you break it up and you dismember his body, the statue, then you destroy the opportunity to capitalize on Columbus. Ruins are not ruined. History pays. We just have to make it work. We have to find revenue streams to allow us to capitalize on a growing orange economy.
The Archangel did, because he went and destroyed it. He saw no way to make money off of that. Mind you, it is the Columbus statue is the most photographed monument and tourist attraction we have in the Bahamas. Then, and we are now memeing it and saying that it needs to be destroyed. And I said, I am concerned about that. Whereas we could have petitioned, have it moved. We could have put it in a museum, but you have people who are not desirous of that. And that is what our conversation needs to be about.
Someone says, with all due respect, CA, as a former taxi driver, no taxi driver points to Columbus as a monster, but are taught by Bahama hosts that he landed in the Bahamas 1492, and that's all. Some text, I don't think the issue is that people don't want a museum or out in the open. The issue is the narrative that you have going with this monument. Are you telling people that this guy wiped out a whole native population? There was a whole genocide. So the narrative is what's important, and people will stand behind the correct narrative.
And this is why I interject and ask Mr. Curry, Dr. Curry, in your class, have you ever told half of the story about Columbus? I'm assuming that this is your job, to tell the full story. Who in the Bahamas do not know Columbus was a monster?
Listen, I had a class. I had a class just today. I had a student who was born and raised in San Salvador. She told me, and she's a mature student, she told me that when she went to school in San Sal and Corporantal, they were taught that Columbus was a hero, a discoverer, a man of the age of exploration, that, you know, he discovered the new world. That's what they were taught in the 70s and 80s. So we had a conversation today about what we really know about Columbus, the villain, all right? The man who really symbolized and in practicality represents the worst face of colonialism. So believe it or not, I'm still having those conversations, telling both sides of the story in my classes today. Like I'm talking about like earlier this afternoon. So yeah, CA, it's still a story that we have to tell, and it's still a narrative that needs to be waved because it is not nationally recognized. We might like to think it is, but there are a lot of people out there who still thinking he's a hero.
Yeah, that's a big thing. I trust me, that narrative was strong when I was younger, and I was not in the 70s or 80s either, but we digress. Someone says, also remove Dog Flea Alley as the name. I'm unaware of if there is a statue of Judas. I am unaware of it, but the story of Christ and Christianity is not properly told without Judas. The full context in life is seen in the whole story. So keep Columbus as a part of the big story. I like that's a good point. Someone said the dismantling of the statue is a part of the story. So I think that that's something there as well. Someone says a lot of us and online, a lot of us wanted to do away with that statue, but we didn't have the courage to do it. And I think that this is such a great jump off where we should really be having this is culture. So now, and the rest of the world, we're not new to this. This is not new to us. The rest of the world has been struggling with this as well. And we've been seeing it across the United States, seeing it in London, the dismantling of some of these statues that come with some tainted history. So then what for us? And we have to end right here with that. But thank you, Dr. Chris Curry, C.A. Nuri. Thank you so much. Special thanks also to President Press Secretary Clint Watson. Everyone have a great day. Tomorrow, Dr. Shankara Chetty, we're talking about his work in South Africa with COVID-19. Have a good one. You're listening to the Hit Back Guardian Radio 96.9 FM.